Want to make sure I'm being heard. Excellent. Thank you. South Texas, you win. Nice. Thanks a lot, everyone. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm happy. Good. More people chimed in because as I find when I speak with clinics or do training, the single, I hate to use the phrase, mystifying or most mystifying element of Vetter seems to be templates. And if properly used, they make the software that much more effective. That said, as South Texas and I shine, you guys, of course, you guys are all here. I was going to point out, we're working furiously to improve features of the letter template and the medical note. And I really have to thank a lot of the clinics who've pointed out a lot of areas for improvement. So let me go ahead. I'm going to cover them, and I'm going to tell you the order. I'm going to go easiest to most difficult. We're going to do content snippets really quickly, right? Certain other things quickly, and then we'll move on to letter templates, which is the oh, yeah, thank you. I get to screen share, not you. Letter templates, which tends to be the more difficult one to work with. So let me start with a screen share here. Should all be seeing my Vetter software calendar. I will, like every few minutes, I'll stop and look for chat questions. And so let me just jump over to settings right away. And we'll come in here and take a look at our templates. So by definition, we have 5 things that fall under templates: bundles, letters, content snippets, which is pre-formatted content, medical notes, and wellness plans. So wellness plans is not going to be part of this here. That's an add-on, but they work just like bundles. And so we'll start with the easiest first, content snippets, then we'll go to bundles, then we'll go to medical notes, and then finally letters. These are the easiest ones to take a look at. Content snippets, pre-formatted content, it's your preferred nomenclature, phrases that you use often while, I'm just going to mute some mics here very quickly, just less background noise. Sorry. Thank you. And this is just to make life easier inside a medical note. So whatever it is that you like to say a lot or you have care instructions, if I take a look at my flea allergy one here, all I do is I can copy paste right from any kind of document. Now, here's a copy paste trick, by the way, and I've pointed this out in the tip of the week, is most people go, let's say they go from a Word document, and they'll say Control C, and then they'll want to drop it into Vetter, into here, and they'll do Control V. Now, oftentimes because of the formatting on Word or any kind of text program, they have, right, it's not like Word builds this and says, hey, we need this to sync with Vetter. So oftentimes if you just drop something in, especially like even into our letter templates, people call us, the formatting will be off. Well, if you ever do this, instead of hitting just right Command V or Control V, hit Command Shift V. And this is one of my tips of the week. So this is a universal kind of software trick. If I go to I don't know, whatever, just any website here, let's go to see where I spend my time at work. Don't tell my boss. And I go to my ESPN site here. And let's just say I want to grab this here, right? And I go then to drop this into a template or into, right, anything in Vetter. If I do a Control V, in this case, it showed up just fine. You never quite know how it's formatted. But the better way to do it is hit Command Shift V. That will remove all kinds of indentations, margins, anything that's been created by the original source. Okay. Other little neat thing on these the content snippets is if you drop in a hyperlink, you want your clients to read about something, okay? This will actually then, if you email them the medical note, it will then be a clickable hyperlink and they can just click there. So don't worry, you're like, hey, will this show up? Yeah, this will show up as a hyperlink when you export it and send it to a client, okay? Just see if there's any questions on content snippets. No, pretty straightforward. Now we'll go to bundles. And in bundles, right, bundles again are optional to use. I recommend them highly though, because it's designed to make your life a little easier. This is simply a collection of inventory items and services, right? That instead of adding the charges individually, right, you add them as a group. Remember, bundles are never restrictional, they are foundational, right? So if I add this onto a patient record, you're like, I don't want to use the butorphanol, or they don't need a nail trim today, then fine, delete it. But it's just saving you time. And I've had clinics say to me, well, I usually add charges individually because that's just how I do it. And I said, well, but there's got to be, how about just the base exam? Or if you're a mobile vet, how about just the house call and the travel fee? I have to wager that there is a foundational charge or base charge that you have for every kind of appointment. Simply even just having a one item bundle, exam fee. Good. That's one less thing you now have to add individually when you're in the patient record or the medical note. Okay. If you notice here, any actions that you have associated with those items will carry into the bundle, right? I have these reminders set up for, these various items. They're going to follow me into the bundle. Now, I could also, once there is a bundle created, I could add a further action to the bundle, okay? So individual item actions carry into the bundle, but I can also add actions to the bundle to make life a little bit easier for you. One trick when using bundles is I like to create what I call let's say it's a surgery bundle. It's got to be down here somewhere. Oh, these are all these is everything together. Let's say it's a surgical procedure here, okay? Now, notice I added an item down here called surgical follow-up visit. Now, let's say you have certain things, spay, neuter, soft tissue surgery, what have you, that you want an automatic return, right, to happen. Now, instead of having manually to create a reminder and say, hey, we need to see you in 2 weeks, create an item. Look what I did here. I just call it surgical. Actually, I've made 2 of them. And I have a surgical follow-up visit. And for example, let's say as a base thing, I want this to be done every time I do surgery. 2 weeks later, they're going to come in. Right now, it's a $0 item, but the whole point to this is it's not. And let's say, for example, I don't want this printed on the invoice. I say no. Okay. The point of this is it's going to generate a reminder, right? So here it is as part of see, I have 2 surgical follow-up visits. I need to condense that. Let me print this on invoice, no. And the neat trick of this is, hey, got all this. I want them to come in 2 weeks later. I add this to a patient record. And if I go to one of my poor guy, Azriel, who gets, I should take him on vacation one day. Poor guy gets abused in my demos. I come to here and I add a record, I add a bundle. And the nice trick of it here is I want that reminder to be generated, right? I don't want to have to take an extra step. And I come to here, I hit next, whatever, it's all there. Here's my follow-up visit. And now, instead of having to generate a reminder or what have you manually, right here, now the client is going to get an email, right, from the software. However you have your reminder set up, is going to get an email. to, hey, remember, March 14th, come on in for that surgical follow-up visit. And that's just a little trick to using the bundle, I would say, to a greater degree of efficacy. All right. Let me pause and see if there's any questions. Oh, good. I'm making sense. Yay. All right. Now we're going to move to medical notes. And let me get rid of that task that I will never do. Don't tell my boss. And take a look at, I'm going to start a new template here. I'm going to start a new medical note template. Okay. We'll call this office hours note. Okay. And voila, we come to here, we hit save. Now, at first, this is a blank slate. And that at first intimidates people. Now, the medical notes, we start you off with 3 of them, right? The 3 basic, standard, simple soap. Although I will say, off the record, although this is on the record, I never quite understood why one's basic, one's simple, and one's standard, but we're just going to go with it. I'm not the product team. Those are hard-coded into the software. They can't be edited. We've dropped those in there. A lot of clinics just like using those. Good. Go with it. Now, to create your own, right, this is entirely configurable by you. What do I, right, want to, do I want to know everything in the subjective history, right, or just some of it, right? Oops, don't want to, you know, maybe I just want to learn about, you know, certain, I don't know, weight gain, loss, years owned, notes, what have you, problems, notes, etc. I have these things in here, and remember, maybe that's all I want to know. And I can move things around. Now, one of the things is to give you a little tip is whatever gets typed in the first, I think it's like 140, 150 characters, that then shows up on the medical note. Now, clinics have often asked us, why don't you just have a summary field at the very top? Well, the reason is we kind of created this conundrum for ourselves by allowing clinics to move things around. Some clinics want the first thing to be this up here, right? Years owned. Get this up here. Wait, sorry. So I have to move the whole history up here first. So it's like this. So some clinics might want years owned to be first. Some clinics might want body condition score to be first. And so since we've made the fields movable, what it's created is there's not a standardization, right, in terms of, right, what a clinic is going to see then in the medical note history. And I'll show you this to explain what I'm talking about. And remember, you can also always start off with within normal limits, right? Pre-populated text in there. And most clinics just go ahead, I know this is not appropriate, right, vaccination history, but they default to normal because 90% of the time it is normal. And then during the exam, they just delete it if it's not normal. I can come to here to objective, right? And I can begin to add items, you know, as many or as few as I want. Again, it's entirely up to you, right? What, you know, how much, how little I want to add. And, you know, 16 different vitals. Do you want all of them? Do you want some of them? You get the idea. It's all here, right? You make this as thorough as need be. In the assessment section, we have, right, a diagnoses field, and I'll comment on that in a moment. And let me close this to make it a little bit more visible, easier to work with. And let's give them also a plan and client communication. Okay. Now, if you are a holistic vet, or do holistic or have holistic practitioners as part of your practice, right? We also have all of this right here add it on. Now, we worked with the Chi Institute on this. The Chi Institute gave us this. We are since been told there's a few items that are missing, such as C0 and C7, and we will be adding those. Okay. But so there's a lot of other fields you can add there. So let's just say this is our sample note we're using. I hit save. I can always go back and edit the note. Let's just say I really like the note. I can duplicate it and call one the cat note or one the feline, right? One the canine. You get the idea. So we're going to focus on the summary field here for a moment to see how that plays out and the diagnoses field. So let's go and make a medical note for a patient. And I'm going to choose, here's our office hours note. Provider will be yours truly. And I hit save. Now, in the note itself, some of these, if you use the note to its fullest extent, this template here, it will add more detail, right, when you look at the patient history. Patient presents, with a limp in the front left leg. Okay, boom. And a diagnosis. Now, try as we might, we've chosen to work with AHA on this. Our goal is to have some level of standardization. I know not everybody's a fan of AHA, but for better or for worse, they are, right? They are significant in the veterinary space, in the veterinary industry, and they try to prescribe best practices. And so every 6 months, AHA updates its diagnoses list. And there's over 9,000, right, diagnoses there. And try as we might, we've discovered there are some diagnoses that, right, don't exist the way a clinic would like them to be, right? There's ones that clinics have found, oh, how come that's not there and this isn't there? We have chosen not to add or subtract from this field. We work with AHA on this, and this is it's a conscious product and corporate decision choice, the way we do this. Now, that said, we can always ask AHA to add things. So clinics I've often encouraged clinics, hey, why don't you send us the diagnoses you'd like, and we'll go ahead and ask AHA to add them. And I realize that's not always the most popular option, because then it's like, I got to wait 6 months and who knows if AHA will listen. I get that. That said, we are going to, we're right now building an engineering ticket to also include a free form field. So diagnoses will be whatever, that's there, but we're working on an ability to go ahead and add a free form field so that you can add your own diagnosis that will then also pull into letter templates, and also a report we're building. We're going to build a diagnoses report. The engineering is already started. And that report will then capture diagnoses so you'll be able to look at them on a clinic-wide level. Okay? So save and done. The advantage of putting, like, say, summary and stuff right here, watch what happens now when I go to Azrael. And I guess I should have I didn't fill out the complaint field. I could have done that if I wanted to be, thorough. Oh, I made a mistake here. See, I have history. Did I move my things? I think I'd moved history to the top. It's going to report what is at the very top here. And I'm sorry, I made a mistake here in the note. You notice it pulled up as within normal limits. I wanted to pull up that summary, patient presents with a limp in the front left leg. What I needed to do there, and that's my mistake, I needed to put this in the, gosh darn it, I did the order wrong in my, I'm sorry, I did the order wrong in my template. And because what the history does here, and let me pull this up here under history, my goal is this. My goal is to show you how it can be as most complete as possible. Let me just pause to see if there's any questions. No, and I beg your patience right here. So diagnoses pulls up. I wanted, right, in the summary here, I wanted to pull in, and I hope there's nothing wrong. I believe I might have made a mistake here. And the way I want this, because it's going to pull in what I first type in. And let me get rid of something here. Let's get rid of that. And let's get rid of, and by the way, the notes field exists so you can add more information into the fields, just because we couldn't possibly have thought of every parameter to add. And I hit save. Okay. Now, I did this last night and it worked perfectly fine. I hope, and I sometimes have to admit, this happens. I might have egg on my face where something odd has happened with the software, and that doesn't make me or the software look good. Let me go to the medical note. Okay, so just a second. Here's what we're gonna have to do. I have to delete this note. Let me do this again, because that's still capturing what was on the old note. My apologies. And I don't know why this isn't working the way I desired, because I do this all the time. And I know you're saying to yourself, it's like, see, Matt, this is how we feel. Laugh with me, please. Let's go ahead and create a new note. Okay, complaint. Let's just say limp. Provider is, who cares? That was Dr. Seuss. There's me. Gosh darn it. I did the same mistake. I picked the wrong, I'm sorry. I picked the wrong note again. My apologies here. I admit, I feel flummoxed right now because something's not working that I had practiced. And you are all free to laugh at me or snicker and come to here. So here's our office hours note. I want to quickly add the, where's the diagnoses here? Boom. Let's just say corneal, dry cornea, what have you. Boom, done. And now this worked last night when I practiced it, and so this is what ideally should show up, right? It's always the first 2 lines or 140 characters, roughly, that you type, shows up in the record here, and it does not. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm sorry about this. I'm going to take a screenshot very quickly of everybody who's here. And I apologize for this. And I am going to find out what happened, and I'm going to email you guys back. I can't explain why this isn't working the way it needs to work. Because clearly it's pulling up from the history. It's supposed to pull up from what's at the very top. And I can't understand why it's not doing that. You have my apologies for that. I'm going to research this and get back to you. So let's cover the item of most importance, probably to people, is letter templates. So letter templates, there's a little trick to this, and I'll explain why we do this the way we do. Okay, and we'll call it this. Okay, now, so beginning from here, right, I can pull in as much or as little as I want. If you're familiar with software programs, something called mail merge. And mail merge is I can create a general format, and it's going to then pull in letter information automatically. Like, let's say, hey, we want the letter title here, and then we want the date. It's automatically going to pull this information in, right? Dear, no, we don't know if it's Mr. or Mrs. We'll do this. Let's just say owner information, right? Dear, first name, right? Last name, right? Comma, right? Thank you for your visit to, right? And here's my clinic information. And I'm going to pull in the clinic name, right? So it's going to pull in as much or as little as you need, right? Billing information, boarding information, recipient information, all of these things. And it can be very powerful because I can include patient reminders in there, right? And then I come down here and I can say, thank you. And I can then sign it, right, from the author. Here's the author here. That's you. You can include your signature, which is captured right in your staff profile. And I can make all those things happen. Now, I'm going to show you a finished template instead of writing one. But a couple other things here, right? We can go ahead. We can, do some special characters if we wanted. We can include a hyperlink if we wanted to right here, okay, to let's say a website you want. We can bold. We can italicize, right? We can bullet point things. And if you don't want to use bullet points, right, we can use numbers, right, et cetera, et cetera. Now, so people have asked about anesthesia monitoring sheets. We can change the color of the text, background, what have you. Let's just say I want to do an anesthesia monitoring sheet. And you use these tables here. Let's just say I do a 4x2 grid, okay? And pardon the mess here. And you can use these little grids in here, and I could say, oh, and by the way, like under table properties, if I want to make the borders, let's say, thicker and more visible, right, I can do this here where, for example, now it becomes, right, 20 point, right, is the level of thickness. Hey, I don't want them to be that thick, Let's have them be a little slimmer here, right? No problem. And if I were to do anesthesia monitoring, right, or surgical monitoring, I can just simply say, right, item, time, right, amount, or right, dosage, let's say, okay, given by, right? So all of a sudden then I have these fields. I can still add on to these fields. I don't need to make a new one. I could say insert row after, row before. Right, here's another one. Now let's have another row. So it works like a lot of, software programs that you're used to on your computer. And I can add these. Now I pull this up then during the procedure, and your technician can just go ahead and add this in real time, right? I don't know, Batorfa. No, and this can be done directly from, right, the patient page or the medical note, right? Because now this is going to get updated, right, in real time, and you're just doing this, and I tab, and I go to the next, and I can go ahead, and I can monitor things. And if I do this from the medical note or the patient record, it's then automatically tied to them, okay? I'm going to pause if there's any questions on what I just did there. Okay, no, doing fine. Now, I want to show you a more complete version, though. I'm not going to save this letter. Let's just go back to my templates. And I come to here, view letters. This is one I often use. Exam discharge letter, okay? And you can see I'm pulling in a lot of different things. I've included the medical note from the day's visit and so-and-so's prescriptions and reminders. Now, here's a little trick. Clinics have often asked us, they say, how come, right, how come we can't pull in items from the medical note and prescriptions and stuff and medical records right here when we build the template? So this has been a philosophical choice here. And it was, we wanted people to be in the note itself. We wanted people to be on the patient history itself to pull these items, because we worried that the margin of error would be too great. You know, someone would put in here, hey, I want the objective and the assessment part of the note to be in here. And then they might go to a patient screen, right? And they might not even have a medical note accessed. And then all of a sudden they're going to get these blank spots on the letter. We wanted to kind of force users to go to the note and to go to the patient to pull the information from there, because we felt that the risk of error was too great. So this is something we're revisiting. And I'll show you what I mean. And there's a trick now to how I train people. If I go back to my little guy, Azrael, let's go back to that medical note that has given me such grief. Always, if possible, add the letter from the medical note, because they're tied together then on the patient history. And I had a letter. Let's take that same exam discharge letter, right? And the owner is Mr. Gargamel, and we hit save. Okay. Now notice it's pulling in everything. Okay. And now I've included the medical note from the day's visit and his prescriptions and reminders. So the reminders, that was part of the original template. And I can also add attachments to this. And these are the attachments that I have available, right, in the patient history. Let's go to edit here. And now, for example, I want to include parts of the note and I want to include prescriptions. I can come to here and say, oh, I didn't add any records during this. Let me back up for a moment here. Let me add something here. Let's add some records. Let's just call it the feline wellness exam. Just add that here. So just so we have something to pull from. And this is why it's important, right? Because if people add in, oh, patient records, and they're not in a medical note or prescriptions, right, the software doesn't know where to pull from. And that's why we built it this way. But I'll show you a little trick. And in other words, if you use this responsibly, it'll be pretty powerful. Okay. Oh, gosh. Let's go to my letter. Sorry. Apologize for the stumble there. So now we're here. I hit edit. And I go ahead and I come to here. Let's just say I want to pull the prescriptions in. So I go to medical records. And now I could say, hey, these are the prescriptions that we added from today. Right here are the vaccines we added from today. And I hit save. Okay. So now, oh, there they are. They're all good. Even better, let's add parts of the medical note. Right. Let's put this here and medical note. Boom. I hit, I don't know, what have you, subject. Let's just put a few of those in. And now all of a sudden, right, I can pull in all of these items. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. There's my diagnoses, etc. It's all there. Now, a couple of things. We are going to make this process easier. We're going to build this within the next month. People have asked, you know, Matt, we don't need, right, For example, we don't need the whole assessment field. We just want the diagnoses here. Or we don't need the entire subjective history. Maybe I just want to put years owned in, right? So this is a question of pulling, right? If I come to here, it's a question of pulling from making the choices more granular. So coming within the next month, we've heard you, we've listened, we are going to build this. So instead of the whole subjective field, it'll open up. It'll open up like it was, right, in the original medical note template and say, hey, I just want to pull the years owned. You're not going to have to pull the entire, right, I would say parent field. You can pull the children, the subcategories, the subparameters. You'll be able to pull those into the letter to make the letter easier to read and easier to use. Now, my little trick is this. Moving forward, if I believe the person is responsible, and I say this with all due jest and humor, build the note the way you want it to be in the medical note, right? Build it from here. Take advantage of these features. Like, hey, let's just say I want this to be part of my note going forward, and then go back to settings here. Go back in and, no, I don't have the letter up. Let's go to here. You can go back into here, right? And now add those in. It's you know, in engineering, we call this a hack, although a hack's can be interpreted as a bad word, right? But this is an engineering hack that you can do and say, hey, you know what? This is now always going to be part of my note. And now moving forward, right? Moving forward, and you know what, gosh, we want to make sure those prescriptions are in there too, right? I don't want to have to always go back here and type in prescriptions and vaccinations, right? We can come to here and do this. Now I save this, okay? But as I say, it has to be used responsibly. You can't just go to, right, the patient record here. Saved, good, just want to confirm that. Let's just say I went into here and I just decided to draft a note. And this is the reason why we don't do it as a universal thing. We're going to figure out how to do it. If I went to here and said new letter, right, and chose, right, let's just say exam discharge letter. Now, it gives you an option to tie it to a medical note so that it can then pull the assessment, the objective, the subjective from a medical note. But what happens is a lot of clinics, people just go, oh, no medical note, right? And they hit save. And then all of a sudden, right, it's going to say, where am I pulling from? I have no idea what I'm pulling from. But as long as you use it responsibly and tie it to a medical note, right, or use it from within the medical note, right, then and then also with that comes prescriptions, right? They have to have records that are added to the note. Do it from within the note itself. So if I come into here, now if I'm using this responsibly, where I already have records, as you can see, and I have a medical note, and now I come to here and I say, let's get rid of this original one that we were using, right? And now I can use the new, right, the new enhanced one. Then I don't have to, look, boom, done. I don't have to do any more editing. So the moral of this story is, right, build your letter in the note, right, with the things that you want to see, okay? Then go back and add it to the template in settings. But make sure your staff knows, this is the part, right, this is why we were hesitant to let people do this. Make sure your staff knows that it's got to be connected to a medical note, right? And if you want things like prescriptions to pull up, right, there need to be charges associated with it. So ideally, and I always stress this, ideally to add all charges, all letters, everything from the note, because then things are going to be tied to the note in the patient history. And those of you who have heard my spiel, you've heard it probably 1,000 times now, and I apologize if I'm a broken record. But the goal here is that, hey, look, everything here is tied. And if I looked at my whole history here, look, everything is tied. Everything's tied. That's the goal, right? Everything is tied to here, and that is our desire, right? Having it all together. If I look at my documents, right, I now know, hey, this letter was not just randomly generated. It was, and I have 1,000 letters for Azrael, so they take a while to load. Sorry. It was tied to this office hours note. And as long as we can tie the letter to a specific medical note with charges, then all of those fields will populate, and it'll should make your life much easier. That's a great little trick. And again, if used responsibly, very powerful. Let me pause for any questions. Okay, last thing I want to show you is this. The other advantage of tying your letter to and some of you have seen me do this, tying a letter to a note is, let's say we're checking out, and I'm just going to go to here, make a quick appointment. So, sorry. Let's do this very quickly. And I want to show you in terms of printing the letter. Okay, I come to here, I'm going to check them in, and I'm going to check them in I'm going to make this as fast as possible. Here's our office hours note. I'm going to give them a bundle so they have something. Here, annual exam, fine. Boom. We make a new invoice, and I hit next. Fine, save, and we check them in. Now, if we tie everything to that note, we tie all of those templates to a note, what's going to happen is this. When I'm ready to collect payment, okay, and by the way, all of these things can be emailed, faxed, or printed, right? They can all be done individually, including the letter, but I like the ability to have it all be presented to the client at one time. So I'm just doing this very quickly. We're in here, and remember, these letters can be emailed, faxed, or printed. They show up in the communication history of the client and the document history of the patient. But here's what's nice. Letters there. Boom, we have our note. We go back to the schedule. We have invoice 3396. And we go back to here, and we check somebody out. And you can do this from the clinic census or from the schedule. Is if you notice here, and I click here under documents, I can now also, right, discharge them with that letter, right? So if I needed to, and I wanted to have all of these, I don't need all these, both vaccine certificates or the rabies with the vaccine. Now, and let's just say I'm going to collect payment on one of these things, and voila. And I could, right, just imagine telling your client, hey, when you leave, please open your phone. You got an email from us with all your documents. Or check your email when you get home. But the nice thing is that same letter, instead of having to generate it, oops, I made a mistake there. That same letter, instead of having to generate it independently, right, I can now go ahead and hit this in one fell swoop, and you've collected payment, and that same letter is now going to be generated here. These are my PDF print previews, and these take a moment to load, but there they go. And my letter is going to be in here somewhere. Having all the documents in one place is nice, like right here. So instead of having to send it separately from the letter template page itself, I do it at time of checkout. So yeah, I kind of cheated here. I stressed the checkout procedure again, but that is also part of the letter template process. So in summary, we covered the easy ones. We covered, right, like letters and bundles. I'm sorry, content snippets and bundles. The easier ones, medical notes, a little tougher to build, and Also letters, which is probably the toughest one to use. And the trick there is, right, you want to pull in those things from the patient history, such as prescriptions or labs. If you want to pull things in, such as the exam notes, build it in the medical note itself, and then come back and drop it into here. It's a little trick or hack, but there's a reason why it works that way. Okay? I'm going to check one last time for any questions. Ooh, I got a question. Yay. Is it possible to duplicate a medical note for a patient? It's from Jennifer. For example, a lot of information for the patient remains the same on subsequent visits, so it would save so much time to be able to duplicate the previous note to start and then input any changes at the subsequent visit. Does that make sense? Yes, Jennifer, it makes a lot of sense. And we've had a very strong internal debate about this. I'm not head of product, and as I like to joke, product people are prima donnas, and they like their product to look always clean and sleek. And I'm a sales guy, and I want them to be functional to make your lives easier. This, myself and if you know Jeff Ulrich, our COO and lead engineer, has worked with a lot of you. He and I have been banging the war drum on this, that we really want this to be part of the software. So we are going to add this, Jennifer, to the software later this year. I don't know when, but we are going to do it because we believe it adds value. From South Texas, woohoo, Jennifer, yay. From South Texas, sometimes when we add a veterinarian as a recipient and that veterinarian contact has their phone number in correct spot and contacts, the phone number will not show up in the letter when we use that as an option in the letter. Okay, let's take a look at this very quickly. Let's take a look at a letter here. I see what South Texas is saying. Let me just go to a sample letter. I don't know, just going to pull up, let's say it's a consent form. Oh, and by the way, one last thing on consent forms I forgot to add. It's the most obvious one. We can capture signatures, right? If you want a signature captured anywhere, and I don't know why I forgot that, right? Anywhere you want, under letter information, wherever you want a signature to be, you come to here and you say signature field, right? And you could have for a consent form, there could be multiple places where you need a signature. And you could have 5 different signature fields on that letter. All the client has to do is sign one time, and then it'll then auto-populate all the fields. God, don't know why I forgot that. Now, coming here to what South Texas was saying is looking for the recipient information. And so you're saying, so the recipient phone number, this should pop up, right? So I'm going to read South Texas's question. Everyone can see it. It's in the chat from South Texas. It's a public chat. Says the veterinarian contact has their phone number in the correct spot. The phone number will not show up in the letter when we use that as an option in the letter. Now, okay, that should not be. I don't know why that is the case. So, for example, if I wanted the recipient here, dear, let's say it's a referring veterinarian, dear, salutation, Dr. Dr. Seuss, and I added in a phone number, right, and it could be either their company phone or their mobile phone, it's supposed to track, right, basically what you're pulling from those fields, right? So, I mean, you're right about this. I don't know why that would not work. Because if I put those in and I have, those phones, and I then go to contacts, let's just say I'm pulling up a random contact here. And I think I'm a contact 2 in here. Let's say it's Silver Oak Stables. And I have this here. It should pull the phone number. I don't know why it is not doing that. So what I would ask is this, South Texas, if you can take a screenshot of that and send that to us, because it as far as I know, this works. It'll pull this directly from, hey, if I address this now to, right, if I go to here, if I go to, any old patient and I go to send a letter, right, I create a new letter, and I make this, gosh, what have you, doesn't make a difference what it is. And I want the recipient to be Silver Oak Stables. It's supposed to then pull, right, the necessary information. I mean, I don't have this letter templatized properly, but it should then pull the necessary information. I don't know why that wouldn't be doing it. Let's see if, okay, so South Texas is going to send that to me, and I will research this and let you guys know. One last thing was very quickly, that's the whole signature form thing. I feel badly about having forgotten that, but very quickly, if I wanted to get a consent signature, I am going to do documents, new letter, right, consent form, I hit save, right, and all I need to do is I come to here and I hit sign letter, right, and if you have a tablet, they can use a fingertip and they can just, or stylus, and they can sign it, or you can go, I like to say, the old Etch-a-Sketch style, and hopefully some of you are of my generation where you can remember Etch-a-Sketch, or you can just go ahead and type it. That works too. And then what it's going to do is it's going to populate in the letter. And if you have 5 different spots, it'll populate all 5 of them. And again, this is a lengthy office hours, but there's a lot to cover. I also want to apologize. I don't know what happened with that medical note. I took a screenshot of why it didn't populate my summary into there. I took a screenshot of all the participants. And I will say this, Diane and Jennifer, I don't know what clinics you guys are from. Could you briefly send me a chat what clinics you're from? Because I want to write everybody back and let them know what happened there. I want to be thorough. So I have iShine, I have STVO, Welcome Wagon, VSS Labs. I know that, and if I can get the clinic information from, Diane, the Cat Whisperer, and Jennifer, if you wouldn't mind, and Sundance, yay. Oh, hey, hi, Dr. Burrows. Haven't talked to you in a while. I'm going to get back to all of you and let you know why that didn't work. Okay? I thank everybody for their time and wish you all a great rest of the day. And thank you for bearing with me in a rather lengthy office hours. Hope to talk to everybody soon. Take care. Bye-bye.